Good morning, everyone. I'm checking the audio levels right now. The lag is going to be a little larger than usual because I'm letting it do the auto-generated closed captioning. So let's hope that that works out properly. Good morning. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and start now. And anybody who comes in later, of course, that's the whole beauty of doing it on YouTube. Now, hopefully, the closed captioning, which we're trying out for the first time here, will work out. If not, if it turns out to be more of a problem, we'll turn off closed captioning and put that in the bin for some other time. So the first thing I want to start out with is thank you. The first thing I want to start out with is thank you to everybody who came and supported us and helped us get across, who helped and support us to get us to where we are, to actually get us to launch on Godot. I know that it was 4 very frustrating months when we changed off of Unreal and moved to Godot, and that could have been a very trying time, and I am really, really happy that we had such good community support, and that you guys were absolutely there for us, and I am so grateful for that. That is a huge deal, and I really, really appreciate it. But here we are. We are now on a brand new engine that has just been released. Godot 4.0 only came out last month. We're one of the very early games on it, so there's still a lot going on. The first fix pack, 4.01, just came out a few days ago, and we'll be moving to that here soon. The fix packs in Godot are fairly straightforward. There are still some things that we're waiting on the engine to catch up with for us to do, but nothing serious, nothing significant or major. We've had quite a journey getting here, and we're going to talk about that just a little bit. But before we focus on any of that kind of stuff, we're actually going to focus on what we launched. So the big thing is, Smugglers of Cygnus is a game that's been in development for over 3 years now. We started development of it in early 2020, and at that point we were starting development on Unreal Engine 4.22 and worked on getting all of our stuff done. There was about 18 months of just pure coding that had to go in before we could even have more than some simple screenshots to show people. 18 months of getting models built, code built, materials built, all that kind of stuff, soundtracks commissioned. And so the first officially available alpha of Smugglers of Cygnus was just about a year ago. Almost exactly a year ago. And that was extremely rough. My goodness, it was extremely rough. You could basically do nothing more than look around inside the space station and see the ship that you couldn't actually get to. And thanks to the community and the people, you know, seeing the same vision that we saw and giving us so much feedback and so much support as to what kind of space game they wanted this to be, we changed direction a little bit. We made some things more central. We de-emphasized other things. What was originally going to be very much a purely in-the-groove space trucking game, where you would pick up a load, you would fly it to its destination, there would be navigational hazards, you would drop off the load, you would get paid, you would pick up the next load, morphed into a game that has a lot more depth to it. It has a lot more things that you can do. There's more customization, there's missions, there's more characters, there's NPCs you can interact with, there's more things you can do. There's a lot more ship modifications than we had ever dreamed you would be able to do. It's a whole galaxy of stuff that can be checked out now, and it's not just simple A to B anymore. And that was really where the departure with Unreal happened. Because by the time Unreal 427 came out, which was where we were on our Alpha 10, our Alpha 0 patch 10, Unreal had released Unreal 5 and had made it really clear what their focus was. And it wasn't the same focus that we had. Our focus was on having the ability to have a giant world. I mean really, really giant world. Millions and millions and millions of kilometers across. That players could investigate and check out and look around and explore pretty much however they wanted to on the machines that they had right now. And Unreal Engine 5 is about the machines that you can't yet buy. And that's okay if your push is for releasing a game in 5 years. But it doesn't do us any good when we plan to release this game in 2023 to release it for hardware nobody can use. So if Unreal Engine 5 had remained on the horizon and they said, oh, we're going to have 7 or 8 more maintenance versions of 4.27, up to like 4.5 or 4.8 or something, it's possible that hardware could have caught up in time for us to release and we'd have had a nice long window. But between the issues that we ran into with adapting what's essentially a first-person shooter engine to a giant space universe, the physics alone was a giant challenge, because PhysX, the actual physics program that runs Unreal 4, has a maximum map size of 20 square kilometers. And welcome, Mytho. And our map size is actually, the one in the demo is actually 80 square kilometers. So we are a little bit larger than that. We were immediately running into issues. Another major issue that we ran into that was quite a challenge was that we want at some point to integrate multiplayer. And that point is not this point. We're not jumping the gun and saying Alpha 0 is going to have it, but we would like at some point to have a multiplayer capability. And the issue is that if you use streaming levels in Unreal, every level that a character is in has to stream for every character, which really kind of defeats the entire point of moving huge, heavy objects and scenes off to other locations. Because if player A goes and loads the ship chooser and loads the ship chooser little sub-level, player B has effectively just loaded the ship chooser and the ship chooser sub-level, and that wasn't really going to work for us. It works way better for single-player games, the level streaming, or for multiplayer games that are basically just maps and map updates. So now we're hoping that what we've got is something that we can build on. I haven't worked too heavily on it yet. And I'm hoping that when we cross the bridge to multiplayer, since it's becoming a huge focus for the Godot team, that multiplayer will be there for us. If not, I'm not going to sweat it too much. You know, as it is, we have an engine that we don't have to pay an extra 15%. We have an engine that runs on all of our backers' machines, which was our #1 priority and our #1 concern. We had a handful of backers already who couldn't run the Unreal Engine demo, and that was a major concern for me. It's very important to me that everybody who's currently backing the project gets excellent playability out of the game. I would also like for other people to get good playability out of the game. But obviously, the people who are, you know, the former Cygnus Pizza racers, the people who were the actual backers, the people who are supporters, they all need to get the best possible performance that I can get out of it. Because I feel that's, you know, that's what they've been waiting for. And I'm not going to release something for them that's got subpar. That's not going to happen. So, that's how we arrived where we are. Now, this alpha, the first Godot alpha, is roughly on parity with Alpha 0 Patch 10 on Unreal, which was part of why it took us 5 months to get here. I could have released a Godot alpha 2 months ago, but I didn't have the ship chooser worked out yet. I didn't have the music worked out yet. I didn't have the scales and traveling large distances worked out yet. So I wanted to make sure that I had that, and that I had some basic gamepad compatibility, because a number of our backers are big gamepad fans. So even though I personally don't use a gamepad if I can help it, it's important for me that the gamepad experience is good. So, wanted to make sure that that happened. Okay, and thank you, Mytho. Mytho says the alpha ran pretty well, and it's nice to see the progress on Godot. Thank you very much for that. I'm glad that it ran well. We're starting to get a little bit of feedback from people, and so far the feedback has been, you know, mostly positive. It's actually been a lot better than I was expecting, which I'm really happy about. I was expecting virtually no feedback, and that's actually the very worst, because you don't know what you're doing, right or wrong. And I'm really excited that we're now at a point where we're able to once again make forward progress, and I'm not just playing catch-up. And that's huge to me. So the version that you're seeing running on the screen right now, this is the alpha that I patched last night, the very first patch, and it's just a tiny little 4 megabyte patch, and it addresses a few of the really big bugs that came out right off the bat that I didn't have a chance to update because it takes me 5 hours to upload the game. So for example, like Jess's gamepad being very odd, we looked at that one, and that's going to be an interesting one to fix, because I can't reproduce that particular gamepad mapping issue she's having. So we're going to have to dig into that and find out where that exactly sits. We've also found that gamepads added via Bluetooth versus gamepads cabled in are producing different inputs through the joystick driver, and I don't quite yet know what to do about that, but we'll get there when we get there. So, first off, let's go ahead and get to the nitty-gritty and launch it. So this is the latest version. I'm running it off of the actual itch launcher. I'm, for various reasons that have nothing to do with April Fools, I am down to one screen today, so I'm not running my usual dual screen streaming setup. I don't have my little Wacom tablet off to the side, so I'm running this in a 16:9 window, so there may be a few little quirks that are caused by running it in a window. But let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first up, we have our little disclaimer. The game is in alpha. There's several months remaining before launch. Many parts of the game are missing, incomplete, broken, or currently under construction. Keep an eye out for updates, which will be coming out every few weeks. We'd love to hear your feedback on our forum at the link, which I realize now probably doesn't work out very well, and I need to make that a little bigger. Thank you so much for checking out Smugglers of Cygnus Early Access. Let's see, I think the font's a little crunchy. Let me see if I can size this a bit to get the... There we go. Okay. I'm trying to size it just so that it fits properly on the broadcast stream. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and hit play there. I definitely need to resize this so that it works better. Okay. hang on a second. This is the kind of issue that I have when... There we go. Okay. Oh, but it's off the edge of the stream. Okay, so now that it's laid out correctly, but it's off the edge of the stream, that doesn't help anybody. Okay, let me try this again, and let me see if I can get it to lay out better on the stream this time. This was a single screen thing that is a bit of a challenge for me here. Because I don't want to miss the comments that people are having. But I also... Okay. It's captured it. Let's see if I can get it to capture it and fit it to the screen size. Okay.
Oh shoot.
Is that fitting on the screen properly?
No.
Okay. Wait for it to catch up. It'll catch up here in a second. It will catch up here in a second.
What's that?
And hopefully once it catches up, it will be the right size. Okay. So I'm hoping that I've got it the right size now. Okay,
This is 25 seconds away.
that looks more like it's the right size now. Sorry about that. That's down to me having to one screen it.
Yeah.
Having to one screen it, and one screening it is a little tricky, so I'm going to have to kind of, to keep everything on screen, move the edges slightly off. Okay.
You're 25
I
seconds
think hopefully that will help. Okay.
I'm 25 seconds behind you.
Alright, so let's get on with it. I won't be able to see your comments for a few moments here, but I'll catch up with them in between. Okay, so again, let's try that one more time. So if you have your gamepad plugged in, you will see down here at the bottom it will say press and then the little D-pad button to select. And that's down there at the bottom of the screen. Right here. At any time...
Much better.
Okay. At any time you can... thank you, Mytho. At any time you can just simply use the mouse and keyboard. It's not like one or the other. But if your gamepad is detected, you will definitely see that there will be updates on the screen to show that. We're still working on what we're going to do with these buttons. We may change them so that they're like the front buttons with the big indicators on them, or we may change these to match the keycap on your gamepad. We're still talking on the backer channel. We're still talking with all the backers and the testers to see what they end up liking best. For right now, this one seems to work okay, and it'll do for the moment. So here in the ship changer, you can go between the different ship modes. And one of the bugs that I addressed last night actually had to do with the ship changer and a bug report from a person on Reddit who had managed to crash the engine from the ship changer. And that was due to my doing a real-time load of the ship. And what I needed to do was I needed to preload it. And then that worked out a little bit better for me anyways, because I don't know if that fixed their problem yet. We'll find out. But the closest I could come to reproducing it was going through the list very, very fast, which caused that issue. Okay, so this is the ship that, of course, we've had since the very beginning. But we've also got this one. And this one is actually going to be an interesting ship. You can earn this stealth ship in the game just by working and doing a lot of interesting missions for the Shady Trader and the coalition of interesting people that you're going to meet along the way. Or, if you're a backer at the $15 a month level and higher, a bounty hunter essentially, or a pirate or a smuggler level backer, one of the many rewards is this ship right out of the gate. And as you can see, this ship is one of the only ones that actually has an internal cargo hold. You actually have the ability to store gear inside the ship, which helps elude detection. If you look at, for example, the El Toro actually holds cargo outside, which is not nearly as friendly for atmosphere, and is obviously, not as good at evading detection. However, this one can hold 10,000, you can just call them mass, you can call them kilograms, whatever you like, it holds 10,000 units of cargo, whereas this one only holds 1,000 units of cargo. So the amount of cargo that they carry is pretty dramatically different. So if you're going to get ahead in the game with this one, you probably want to hold a little bit spicier cargo. You want to carry stuff that makes more money for you. This includes things like bounties, items that you're taking someplace that somebody doesn't want you to take them, you know, things like that. So onto the El Toro, which has a bit more customization, so I can show off the customization more. Both of them, you'll be able to name the ship. Right now, the name on them is just the Pre-Alpha 3, which is obviously a stand-in. There'll be a screen here where you'll get to name the ship. It'll be under probably the paint section. I haven't added that yet. That is coming. But you'll be able to name it anything you like up to, I believe, 11 characters. So get your silly names and your cool names and your great names ready. So if we put the wings on, we can come over here and we can take a look at the cons. This con, for example, you know, has a different way of looking at the universe, a different view than this one. And where that may make a difference to you is if you're the kind of person who really likes to have an unobstructed view of space. When you're piloting from the interior mode in this one, you have these A-pillars. But when you're piloting from the interior mode in this one, there are no A-pillars. So you have a beautiful unobstructed view of space. Oh, 1 second. Let me address Mytho's question here. Hang on a second while I tab over to that YouTube. Okay, Mytho says, the ship chooser looks good. The only thing that confused me was changing the body, change the other categories. Might help to disable the other categories until a body is chosen, so it's step by step. That's a really good suggestion. I will do that. Although you tried the engines first, which probably isn't very common. No, actually, that makes a really good sense. I really did think the flow would be largely left to right. So it makes sense that I should basically disable these until you click on one of these. So that you would basically click on this first and then next. And I probably should also add a little explainer. Choose a body. And then once you've chosen a body, you'll have the option. For example, there's no cons for you to choose under this one. I've got a little stand-in icon for this, but it only comes with the one con. So that would actually be very logical, and I will try to get that into the next patch. And thank you for the feedback. Yeah, I was thinking more like people who'd be like, okay, I'll take the default, and then I just want to change the engines and then off to the races. Or even just be like, yeah, that's fine, and then just go. And I probably should disable them until you click the first one, and then have a little helper walk through. And my goodness, my dog is very chatty this morning. He would like very much to be on the stream, so I will acknowledge Teton for all of his effort as his editor-in-chief and his idea vetter. Okay, and now he's gone off to eat his chewy. He is happy now. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the model of the wings. So I explained the difference between the different cons. Okay, now we'll look at the engines. Right now, the small engine single, which shouldn't have done that. That's a bug. Ah, good. I'm glad you like the design. Yeah, the design. I am very bad at user interface design, so it took a lot of help from you folks for the entire time we've been doing this project to actually do the user interface, and it is still work in progress. So please, Steel, keep giving me your feedback on it, because there's been a lot of feedback, and I've done the best I can with it. Now, I will say on the UI side, there's a lot of things we can do with the UI now that we could not do in Unreal Engine. So, some of the ideas that people had forwarded before, like having a window with a notch or a cutout or things like that, those were simply impossible. And much like rounded corners, they're now possible. So, folks can definitely keep giving me their suggestions and their feedbacks, and I'll do what I can with it. Though I remain very bad at user interface design. I'm just doing my best. So right now the single engine double and single basically are the same engine. They're the single. The double will have more power. But right now that's not reflected. That's just simply not in the alpha yet. It will be. And then the tiny engines, unfortunately, once added, can't be removed, as you can tell. by the fact that the instant I touched engines, they popped back on. They will be toggleable soon. I need to set up a toggle for that, and I have not done that yet. So that is also coming, the ability to add or remove the tiny engines. Okay, so let's go on to paint. Now, we will eventually have a full paint booth, effectively, where you'll get a chance to actually choose the colors on a color wheel of some sort, or put in hex code colors that you would like to see. But that is a future thing. For the moment, I have made some quick stand-in materials so that you can just rapidly change colors. The full customization with placing your decals on the ship, with changing the name of the ship, with making very refined color choices however you would like them to be, that's coming, but it's not here yet. So you can see pretty easily from this which parts can be which colors, right? So you can see that this part is a contrasting color, see? And this part is the main color. So you'll be able to pick these two colors independently, and you'll be able to decide, I want this for this color, and I want this for this color. That will be a thing that you'll be able to do. And if we switch back to the Spectre, you will see the Spectre has a little bit of the same, though it's a lot more of the same color. There's also a contrasting color, and the armor is a separate color. So you can actually... And I made this one specifically to show off that the armor pieces are actually a different color entirely. So you'll have 3 different colors that you can set, and you can make them look however you like. You can make them, you know, obvious or hideous or cool or whatever you would like, you can do. Now, the black one I personally find a little bit hard to keep track of against the black of space. So I don't use this one for streams or demos much because you really can't see it. But if it's your ship, you can make it any color you'd like it to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump back to the El Toro with wings. And then, let's see, how about the red paint job? I like that one, and it's pretty obvious, and it shows up on stream nicely. Okay, and I don't see any new comments on YouTube to address, so let me go ahead and jump on out of here. So, this max cargo that you can carry... Oh, I'll talk about this real quick before we leave. The max cargo that you can carry will have a combination of the engines that you have involved and what the actual body is able to handle. So you'll be able to take the El Toro, for example, this one right here, and by adding the wings and the additional engines and, say, going with the double engine on the back, you'll be able to bump up your max cargo by a fairly fair margin, probably all the way to 12,000 or 15,000. Whereas the Spectre, even with bigger engines, probably won't bump up by much. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the game here. Now, one other bug I'm chasing down that didn't materialize here on stream, so I'll call it out specifically. I'm getting a weird little flash on some screens when it goes between screens. There's like a little, like a blink where it loads the body out of order with the UI. I know that that is a bug, and I am chasing it down, and I will find it as soon as I can. So, by all means, if you want to report that one, please mention it on the forum. Otherwise, I will be mentioning it on this patch notes when I post them after the stream here. Okay, so here we are in the current world. Now, right now, there are no borders on this world. You can actually fly outside of the map. I'm mentioning that specifically for you, Mytho. I know how much you love to fly outside of maps. The current map is approximately 80,000 kilometers across, which is the max size I'm going to make it for the moment. I like to keep the individual maps to a planetary body scale because it keeps the actual missions to about 15 minutes. And I would like the gameplay to stay focused on that 15-minute chunk so that if you want to sit down and play for an hour, you can get 4 or maybe 5 missions done. So that means keeping the planetary bodies down so that when you want to go to another planetary body, like say the next planet in this solar system, you'll take Well, you'll take a time jump to it. So it'll be basically instantaneous for you, but it will take time for the game. Right, so a week will transpire for the pilot, but a week will not transpire for the player. That way the actual real-time flight is kept in, a reasonable sized chunk. And then when you've completed your missions and have actually unlocked your full pilot's license, you'll be able to jump to other solar systems all over the place, and the entire galaxy will be available. Though of the 150-some destinations that we're planning, we probably won't have the majority of those opened up right off the bat. They'll be adding as the game goes on. So that's not really a high priority for us right now. Right now the high priority is to get this particular neighborhood and the other neighborhood that has the gas giant actually working and ready for players to go back and forth. That's actually where we hit a really big bug with Unreal, by the way. We hit a really big bug there where if a player was playing with somebody else and they wanted to move to a different space station or a different solar system or a different planet within the same solar system, both players would have to load both maps into memory at the same time, and that was a problem. So I'm pretty sure that that problem doesn't exist in Godot from what I was looking at from the network code in the beginning, because I don't have that same Team Fortress 2 legacy code to deal with. Basically, I just remove the player from this zone and I put them in the other zone, and so player 1 no longer has player 2 literally in their map, but they're still in the server's memory. Right, so your actual server process says, I know who this person is and where they are, but they're not on this map. We'll see how that actually gets when it gets there. That's still a good long ways off. But it was already a no-go with Unreal, so that was a big one. Okay, so here's one of the other bugs that I addressed, was the UI was not actually updating correctly, which it is now. And the second engine did not have a proper plume. I apologize for the plumes. I haven't mastered particles in Godot yet, so these are still very rudimentary, but hopefully they're okay as a stand-in. So one of the things that was really important was people said right off the bat they wanted to be able to fly through the rings, and that was going to be the first thing that everyone did. So I will do that first off, so that you can see that we did indeed fix the collision, so everyone can fly right through the rings. I'm not sure why that's everyone's first thing to do, but I've watched a few people, and that was actually their very first thing to do, so there it is. You can fly right through it. And one person on Reddit was very interested to know if you could fly upside down. And I was like, well, it depends on what you mean by upside down. I mean, can you actually be on the underside of the station where it is currently night and fly upside down? Yes, you absolutely can. Do you want to actually just, pull like an Immelman and just hang out there? Or, just do barrel rolls? You can fly in any orientation that it makes you happy to do so. Now, on gamepad, it is still a little bit awkward to move the ship around. I need to actually do some lerping on the game, or on the, sorry. If you're not using a gamepad, the inputs are still a little bit abrupt, and I need to do some work on lerping them around. That is in progress, and I'm working on that to make the keyboard inputs a little bit smoother. Ship handling is pretty high on my priority list, because this is just a little too fast, and it's a little too... It feels a little too digital, and it needs to feel a bit more analog in the ship movement. But ship movement is in its own entire thing. I spent roughly 10 months doing very little more than ship movement configuration tweaks on the previous engine. So I'm well aware that it's going to take some time to fix. On gamepad, as you can see, it's actually pretty smooth. Though it does sort of lack a feeling of weight, because you can move a little faster than you should be able to. Okay, let's see. Some other bugs that we've got that we need to address. The collision zone for deliveries to the planet is absurdly out of scale. We'll fix that. But you no longer can actually crash into the planet, and it's now a much better scale and quite a lot further away. The delivery zones for the station seem to be a little bit more realistic, though I need to trim those. The delivery zone for the moon is just about right. So those are where that stands now. So let's go ahead and bring up the job board and grab a first job here. So the job board is either the right special key, which on an Xbox gamepad has the 3 slashes, or it's the control button, you know, the control key there next to your alt key on a keyboard, and that brings up the job board. Now, those of you who remember the old alpha will remember that the job board there was a very literal physical job board you had to walk up to in the station. That still exists, though I haven't finished the station to my satisfaction yet. However, it seemed silly to me that in a spacefaring civilization, the only place you'd be able to get a job is literally walking up to a bulletin board and picking it up. So I wanted to make the tablet be much more front and center in the experience. So now it is. So let's go ahead and take a job here. We'll go ahead and head to Alpha 1 Minor, because that's by far the most exciting job that you can take. Currently, no ships meet requirements. That's just a not yet implemented feature. So I'm going to go ahead and take that. I'm going to take that job, and you'll see that I've got my little waypoint has shown up. And I now have the ability to actually go up here and click on this. This was a bug that was just fixed, and I can see where my current is. Oh, did I hit a new bug? Oh my goodness, I just hit a new bug.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm glad I did that, because I've just hit a new bug where after going into the information tab, I lose control of my ship. I know exactly what caused that. Unfortunately, I will need to fix that and get that patched. Whoops. Okay. Well, I am now heading in an uncontrolled manner directly for that station, or directly for the planet. And because it thinks I'm still in the UI, it's not accepting ship input. I'll just hit escape and hop back to the menu here. No big. Let me check on comments. Oh, I'm glad you like the animation for the job screen. Thank you. I liked the idea of a little boot up screen for it. Yeah, you understand the problem with particles. It took 3 tutorials and 45 minutes to have some yellow particles fly upwards. Yes. I am very spoiled on particles. I have managed to go through a career in game dev since the 1980s without ever being good at them. Because there have always been places or people I could get good particles from, and then I just sort of placed them where I needed them and worked with them and didn't have to actually make them from scratch. So this will be the first time that I have to actually make my own particles from scratch like a big boy, and I'm telling you, I'm not looking forward to it. I have managed to skirt that since the Commodore. Particles have come and gone, and I've been like, yeah, that's nice. Okay, so aside from that bug, let's see if we can go in and... See, the nice thing is everything is set up basically just the way you left it. So you can just jump right through. Okay, and I have control of my ship, and I have my job. As you can see, the job still exists. But it didn't actually reload the destination for the job, which is a feature I simply haven't implemented yet. That's not actually a bug, I haven't implemented that yet. The save game state was something that I just barely got added before we put the alpha up. So honestly, I'm kind of impressed that it kept a job for me. In fact, I think I'll cancel that job and get a new job. So you can do that at any time. You can just change the job that you're on. Let's see, let's grab one for Alpha 1 Minor. Dink. Okay, and it will change our job. Now, you can see here one of the other very small bugs. There's a graphical bug on the scale of the indicator for Alpha 1 Minor. I'll get to that shortly. It wasn't a top priority, but it will certainly be gotten to. So we're going to go ahead and catch the moon now. Now, this is a challenge because this ship isn't fast enough to catch up to the moon. So you actually have to intercept the moon, which can be a bit of a piloting challenge, which is part of why I picked it for this stream. Because I'm like, if you guys can see the developer having a difficulty with it, maybe you'll feel a little better about how hard it actually is to collect or to catch up to a moving orbital body. It's kind of a pain. What I recommend is you aim for where you can get there well ahead of it, and then you more or less wait for the moon to run into you. Or you try to intercept it from the direction that it's going. So the moon is actually orbiting counterclockwise to the planet from this perspective. So what you would want to do is you would want to fly clockwise around the planet, and then you'll be able to get to it quite easily. So while we're getting to the planet, because it is quite a distance at 2.2 Gs, let me check the YouTube chat. Am I using resources for saving? Oh, you mean the Godot resource file. So, no. I was thinking about doing that and saving it as a TSCN file. And I played with saving it as a JSON file. And I ended up putting the settings in a JSON file because I wanted people to be able to fix their settings very easily if something went wrong. But what I'm actually doing is, after playing with the save as resource, I decided what was easier was to save as a dictionary. And so I save it literally as a dictionary file. So, hope that answers it. And actually, we can dig into the Godot piece at quite some detail if you guys like. I mean, even though I'm not making this technically open source, that's only to protect the assets. I'm more than happy to share the actual code. So yeah, we can definitely dig into the way that I'm actually saving here in a minute. But yeah, I use dictionaries really heavily because I've always been a very big fan of hashes. I don't know if it's a C++ thing, and I really like structs. And so structs became hashes, became hash maps, became dictionaries for me. Or if it's just because I find it to be a very easy way to access things, because it's very much like accessing a database table. But yeah, saving it as a dictionary worked out really, really well. And the funny thing is the dictionary file looks almost human readable, but it's not quite human readable, which is pretty funny. I look forward to the hacks where people actually start breaking the files to give themselves $1 million or whatever. I have no problem with that. You know, it's a single-player game. Hack it however you like. Okay, as you can see, the planet is, or the moon of the planet is approaching, and it's coming off to our left there. Or is it? Or is it coming at us from below? Oh no! So the graphics, by the way, which I really quite like, these are all SDFGI. So if you're curious how the SDFGI pipeline in Godot looks, it looks like this. And you'll notice from like the gentle light changes and the gentle shadow changes that it's not quite as aggressive as NVIDIA's RTX, but it's far better performing, and it's not quite as restrictive as Unreal's static light maps. So it does a really good job of being in between the two. And I know that ray tracing is a major focus. Juan Lunetsky, in his most recent GDC presentation, was speaking about how they were focusing on improving the ray tracing engine. It was something that they really wanted to do a lot of work to improve. So I'm interested to see where it goes. But for now, I'm pretty happy with it because SDFGI being available to every player and having it gracefully degrade to most video cards is a win for me. That's an absolute win. And if I turn it off in this scene, the scene still looks very similar. So I'm actually pretty happy with that overall. Now, as you know, we are going to paywall ray tracing. And I hate to do that, but it makes sense to have it be part of the deluxe edition since so much else comes in the deluxe edition. Though, as always, we're going to put it up to a vote for the backers and let them decide. You know, the deluxe edition may stand on its own with the 8K or with the 4K textures and the pack-ins and all the extra stuff, and ray tracing may come out to everybody. We'll see how that goes. That'll be a decision left up to the backers. But that is the initial plan. But for me, because the scene looks so similar with and without ray tracing turned on, I don't think it's really any huge loss, and I think it will help be more performant on lower-end machines with the ray tracing turned off. And, you know, my big point is the standard edition should work on nearly every computer we can possibly address without having to go to huge lengths. Okay, so as you can see, I'm gaining on it, but it's slipping away pretty fast. I mean, you know, that's the brakes in orbital mechanics. But the real point is that I want to reach a point where the moon was, and then turn around and wait for it to come back. That's what I'm doing right now, is I'm making sure that I'm inside of its orbit. Now, as far as landing on the moon and landing on the planets, as you know, we will definitely have some locations you can land and fly around. That was an important thing that we had from the previous, and it will be an important thing that we'll have again. However, it's fairly far down my priority list compared to landing on the station. I believe the current backers poll on the forum has station landings and docking as the highest priority coming up, followed by piloting from the interior bridge view. So that's the order those are going to be tackled in, is getting the interior station finished and then the bridge view. And I'll show you the interior station view here in a little bit. We actually are getting there. It's just not all hooked up together and connected, and there's a lot of pieces that still need to be finished before I'm happy with the station view. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this direction and I'm going to head at all speed this way, now that I'm inside the orbit of the planet, inside the orbit of the moon. Welcome, Indie Gamiacs! I'm so happy to see you on one of my streams. So Indie Gamiacs runs the excellent virtual indie booth where he and his friend Paul demo a whole variety of indie games every week, and it's absolutely fantastic. You should definitely go check it out. You may very well find your next favorite indie game there, so make sure to do that. But thank you so much for dropping by. I appreciate you stopping and saying hi. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, Mytho. It ran well on your system and 1 gig of RAM. Thank goodness. Please put up your system specs on the thing so that I can list that as a system it runs well on. Because I'm trying to collect as many systems.
System specs,
I should. That is a very good suggestion. I will put a system specs section where people can report their experiences and their hardware, so that I can assemble a hardware database. That's one of the hardest parts of indie game development, is you don't have 10,000 machines that you can test on. You've got whatever you can afford. And in my case, that's 4 machines. And I know for a fact it performs poorly on my rinky-dink old Lenovo laptop with an Intel chip. And I know that it performs brilliantly on my 1050. And it performs brilliantly on my main development box, but that's all I can really test. And then we have to rely on other people for everything else. Okay, so let's see, where'd that silly moon go? Okay, so the moon is over there. But we are well on our way to meet it on the flip here. Okay, one person on Reddit had mentioned that they didn't like the way the camera springs back. I presume this piece? So, that's actually the first negative feedback I've heard on it. But, as always, let me know. We can always find ways around things. That camera spring back thing was actually something that as Mytho and Richard probably know, was a long requested feature. That was something that people wanted because it was too easy for the camera to get stranded like out here, and then they had difficulty maneuvering the ship with the camera like stuck in whatever odd angle it was at. But we could always change things, and we can always add additional camera modes. Like we could create a non-spring back mode or whatever. We certainly had one before. I called it photo mode. So things like that can always be done. Any changes people want, put them in the feedback forum so that they don't get lost. Because, my brain is like a colander, and there's always stuff running in and out of it. And try as I might to do my best, sometimes things get forgotten. So graphically, the next big change coming is going to be animations and the interior of the spaceship. Animations, I just recently learned how to import animations from Blender into Godot, so I will be doing that as soon as I can. And then you'll get things like the atmospheric braking coming back on the ship and stuff like that. Okay, here we go. Our delivery will be completed soon. Okay, and if anybody has any questions or anything that they specifically want to see, aside from the questions on looking into how we're doing the save system, which we'll address here in a little bit, I will be happy to take those questions anytime you like. We can also try playing it briefly on non-ray tracing mode if you guys want to see how that looks. And so you can see what the actual difference looks like between ray tracing and non-ray tracing modes. First, let's get this delivery. I'm obsessed now with getting this delivery completed. So obviously some parts of the UI here are work in progress, right? This is not the final. The final is actually going to be quite a bit different. I want to do something more like Kit. And this corner is mostly finalized, but obviously I'm not going to leave the FPS meter and the giant warning there all the way. This corner is largely finalized. It's going to have your missions and your current jobs. And then the bottom left corner is currently open. It's going to be most likely status alerts. And then we will be bringing back the mouse over to gain info about jobs. That's a little UI piece that I'll be bringing over that has not been ported yet. So when you like put your cursor over something, it will it will give you actions that you can take on that thing. That is definitely coming. That's one of the things that's actually holding up the interior of the station, is getting that little piece working. Okay, so here we come at the moon. Come on, Alpha Minor. Let me try predicting its orbit a little bit. Orbital mechanics makes things so tricky, but that's a big part of why we actually added it. Because, I mean, without orbital mechanics, it's not really... It's you fly, and then you land, and then you fly, and then you land. I mean, that's kind of boring, right? That doesn't even give you the knuckle whitening excitement of trying to get onto an overpass with an overloaded semi in Euro Truck Simulator. You got to have that. But orbital mechanics makes this game much more challenging than it would be otherwise. I'm rather attached to it. Here it comes. We're getting a little bit of graphical lensing effect because it's on the edge of our camera. Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm gonna go ahead and change my aspect to it. There we go, and we got close enough to get our delivery. And our delivery has been completed. Okay, so we have now completed one delivery job in here. I'm not entirely sure how long exactly that took. Ah, see, there was an example of that little flash. So I'm working on tracking that down. Now let me go ahead and hop to the standby scene here for a moment. Okay, let's see. Thank you, Richard. I would appreciate if you tested on those machines. That would be brilliant. Yeah, the more feedback I can get on what works, what doesn't work, the better. Let's see. 1050 Ti ran stable 60 FPS the entire time. Yes, a 1050 Ti, brilliant. That is actually currently our most common test system. We actually have 2 of them at our disposal that we test on. So it will always perform brilliantly on the 1050. Excellent. And I'm glad you like the camera there, Mytho. And Mytho says the animation player node is really powerful. You can't believe how many things it can animate. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, actually. I'm very impressed with it. Okay, so let's go ahead. I will share my Godot screen here, so I can show you guys what the game looks like with ray tracing turned off. So that you can see what the difference is between the ray tracing version of it and the non-ray tracing version of it. It's actually not too bad, aside from the light and the reflections being a little bit different. So let's go ahead and switch to... let me just load the... Let me just load the actual level map directly. We don't need to go through the rest of it. Okay, so I'm in the level map, and I will go to the world environment, and I will turn off SDFGI. Let me go ahead and share this real quick so that you guys can see it. I'll change my game to this. Okay. So I'm going to turn off SDFGI. Okay, so that is now turned off, which means that the SDFGI dependent features are now off. I'll save, and then we'll launch it here.
What's the crying for, sir?
And then my dog is being a little whiny, but that is okay. And then let me go ahead and switch over to the game. Let's see. It's not seeing the game, so what I'll do is I'll actually switch over to the full screen capture for it. We'll switch to the screen capture, and then we'll switch to it. There you go. Okay, so in non-SDFGI, you see that the shadows are a bit more blunt. They're not quite so smoothly applied. And if we get up to objects like this, you'll notice that our engines don't actually light them up. Whereas before you could actually see the reflections from our engines on the superstructure of the space station. You'll see now that in static lighting, we can pass through here and our engines don't light everything up. There's no glittery light response from our ship. But otherwise, it looks pretty much identical. So the effect of ray tracing or not ray tracing, I think it's not a game changer if you have it turned off. It doesn't ruin the game or anything. So I think having that be in the deluxe edition is pretty reasonable. But like I said, I will leave that up to the backers to decide. I think that they're the ones who are the arbiters of what is fair and what is not fair. You know, because at the end of the day, that's who I work for. Is I work for the backers. You know, what you guys think is the best way to do things is what I will try my best to do. Okay, so now I have turned it back on again. But so that's the difference that it makes having the ray tracing turned on. It's small, but it's cosmetic. It's not a huge difference. Okay, and while I'm here, let's make sure I'm sharing this. Okay, and while I'm here, Mytho had asked me to share how I do the save games. So first off, what I do is I have an auto load for the major objects, and the save game is in the persistent auto load. And then the actual player save data is in that one. But I make sure not to save like the entire object because that contains a lot of transient information that I don't want to have move between, which is why I'm not doing the resource save. I don't want the transient information to have to be reset every time. I want to save what I want to save. So if we go to the persistent one here, and then if I jump down to the save, you'll see that this is just, it couldn't be any easier, right? I'm taking a dictionary, I'm loading into the dictionary the things that the dictionary needs to have, making little notes to myself, and then I just save the dictionary as a file access open, save game as a dictionary type object. Super simple. And then when I reload it, I just do the file open and get var. And that's literally all there is to it. It could not be any easier to work with a save game. And I do truly love the fact that I'll be able to give it arbitrary names, because I want people to have the ability to change the names of their save games. So we're going to have a menu where you can save games under different names. That is definitely coming. It's just not coming yet. But because the save game is just a simple string, it makes it very easy to do. So let me switch back to my standby screen here. And then I will move to my work in progress Godot session, because I run them in different projects for the sake of managing a clean Git environment. And we'll take a look at the inside of the station. Am I liking GDScript? That's a really good question. I really hated GD script in Godot 2 and early 3. In 3.5, they implemented a lot of the changes that I had been complaining about, and now I'm a big fan. Because the trouble that I had with GD script initially was the same trouble that I had with Python. Right. And the trouble with Python, as anyone who's used Python knows, is that Python is not a delimited language. Python is a white space sensitive language. So space, space, space is not equal to tab. Even if there's 8 spaces, it's not equal to tab. And if you have an if statement, and it has 3 things following it, and they all look like they're the right indent levels, but one of them is indented using spaces, and one of them is indented using tabs, it will break in exciting ways. And that's a real problem for me. In GDScript in 3.5, they finally updated the editor to make it like sane. Let me find a good example of it. Oh yeah, this is fine. And they said, okay, we'll add this feature that everyone's whining about where you can visually see your indent levels at all times. And they made the type checking and everything a lot more robust. And then in 4, they fixed my last really big problem, which was adding strongly typed items. Let me see if I can find an example where I'm using one. Because, I mean, I come from C++ and C for 40-some years, so I really like my strongly typed languages. And I'm willing to be flexible. You know, I've worked with Perl and Python and PHP. I don't mind loose typing. I don't mind loose typing at all. I just need it to be consistent and predictable loose typing. Let's see if I have something here that uses... Oh, I don't think I do. Anyways, but I wanted to be able to add that. So let me create a function here and give it some strong typing. So the problem was if you wanted to have like an input variable, right? And you needed it to be a specific type. Say I'm doing like an if input something, right? And then I want it to do the thing, okay? See, I also like this. They added a lot more intelligent code checking. But say I was expecting a Boolean, okay? In 3.2, 3.1, if you're expecting a Boolean, you can't tell it this has to be a Boolean and have it error out at the appropriate place. It just gives you these weird nebulous things because it will take that as long as there's any kind of input. It'll be like, yeah, whatever, fine. And you could do, okay, I want this to be a Boolean, and you could try to force it, but all that forcing would do was make it a default value, and that's cute and everything, but it still doesn't help. But what they did was they added... I still get the syntax wrong all the time, but let's see if I... Is it this side? Yes, it's that side. You can now do this, and you can now force a variable to be a strongly typed variable if you need it to be. And that's huge, in my opinion. And you can also do it up here with the exports. I love the new export thing. The old export thing wasn't bad, but I love the new one. So if I have, you know, is on, right? I can now make it a Boolean. Whoops. If I could type it correctly, it would be a Boolean. There. Oh. There we go. There. See what happens when a dog comes up and hits you in the hand while you're trying to type? Okay, so if I have var is on, and I want it to be a Boolean as an export variable, now what will happen is any place where you look at this station thing, you'll have a checkbox. A good example of this is actually... if we go look at the station one, I have the rotate right here, right? And because I had imported this from an older version, I don't actually have it set to be a Boolean right now. So it's assuming that it's a Boolean because it has that. But I can actually make it a bool right there. Right? And now, if you go look in a scene where that exists, like let's take this scene, and I click on the station, you will see that I now have a Boolean checkbox. And that was something that they did not have in 3.2 that they added by 3.5. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm happier now. Let's see, a bug with typed arrays. Exporting one and making changed via the editor can make the variable lose its data. Huh. So you mean if you export an array with a variety of values in it, and you change them via the editor versus via the code, the other ones in the array lose their data? It's interesting. I use that a lot. I haven't seen that. But yeah, that does sound like that would certainly be a bug. Okay, so let's take a look at the station room here. Okay, so in the station room, you can see we've got our basic lighting and stuff set up. Let me turn back the screen cap on. Okay, are you guys seeing that? So I'm working on getting the general look and feel on the interior of the station down. I've gotten the lighting the way I like it. I've gotten the textures and the materials the way I like them. It's getting where it needs to be. And the interior of the station is not quite 100%. It's not quite 100% where I want it yet, but it's getting there. And the lighting is coming together, and the interior is coming together. And I'm getting to be pretty happy with the overall feel. It's got that nice appropriate liminal space. I changed the ceiling from a flat ceiling to this nice rounded ceiling, which is of the same theme. I made one of these walls, and then I made the wall a ceiling instead. I mean, like I had to actually go into Blender and like make a mesh that was a ceiling that just looked like the walls, because obviously they're not. And then we've got the lighting going on up here, and the ray trace lighting is really, it's really good. I mean, let's see, let me make sure that this is capturing properly. Okay. The ray tracing lighting is just, it's so precise. This right here being lit from the panels and the lights comes together so much better than it did in Unreal, and I'm really happy about that. I think it looks really, really solid. And I'm very pleased about that because I was not terribly enthused with how the static map lighting looked in the station before. So we are definitely getting there. And as you can see, I'm not having to use like a whole bunch of different panel lights. I've just got these two lights in the center of each corridor that give me the splash that I'm looking for. And then I've got that nice nebulous lighting in here, which works very nicely. See? I've got the one Omni light right there. And then I've got the station hallway lights are non-Omni light types. So it all works together really, really nicely. And I think the general feel of it is very welcoming. And there's your actual task board. This is the in-station one. And then off to the side here is going to be Bad Luck Bart's. And then off to this side is going to be probably the Station Academy. And then one of the others will be the ship. And we'll make sure to have, in answer to one of the complaints that people had previously, which was a very valid complaint, they were confused and didn't know where to go. They were stuck in Grand Central Station with no map. I will make sure that there are actually decals on the walls that have, like, you know, this direction to Station Bay, this direction to whatever, so that it's really easy and obvious for people. I don't want it to be confusing if I can keep it from being confusing. I see no point in making things harder on people, right? Okay, so I'm now going to go ahead and switch to going offline here. Now, I'm delighted to take any questions you guys have. I will put this on a nice delay here So by all means, shoot with any questions, and I will answer them as best I can. Okay, so Mythos says he thinks it has something to do with the type being a custom resource, not all typed arrays. I can certainly see that. I know some of the custom resources can be weird. And Mythos says the lighting looks nice. Thank you, I appreciate that. I agree that the lighting is definitely, it's definitely something that can be worked with. I don't know why. I don't know why the lights in Unreal are so harsh, but they're really, really harsh. And I've been able to get much softer lighting with the Godot engine, so I'm pretty happy about that. Hey, it's Monster Finger James.
Woo-hoo!
How you doing, Monster Finger Games?
Woo-hoo!
And thank you. I'm glad you like it. I hope you're able to see something other than just the the last little bit with the station. I can go ahead and have. Actually, I should probably have the outro screen be us actually looking at the thing, but you know, I figure the thanks for coming is a nice wind down while I wait for YouTube's delay to take questions. Okay, so if there's any other questions, I'll give everybody a minute here to get them in, to make sure that that I catch them with the delay, because there is a fairly substantial delay, especially with closed captioning enabled. Oh, but I should probably put some music on while we sit here. There's no reason to not have something lovely playing. So I will put on some more of our lovely game music here. Ah, it looks like you're going to have to rewind this. Yes, we are at the very end. We basically will be releasing one of these each time a monthly patch comes out, and possibly a bit more often than that if we have additional patches. This was just a combination of the alpha launch and the April update kind of all at once. So it's sort of a big one. And yeah, it's we've been going for about an hour and some now, so by all means rewind and you'll get to see the whole game, the gameplay, everything that we've got going on in the current patch. Let's see, how long have I been working on this now? Let's see, the game overall I've been working on since the beginning of 2020. The first 18 months were coding it entirely in Unreal, basically getting the models built, getting the Unreal Engine code written, which took quite a lot. I think the Unreal Engine code, the custom Unreal Engine code, was in the neighborhood of 150,000 lines by the time we actually moved to Godot. Oh, Mytho wants to know if there's a way to see the delivery area. Yes, I will show you that. Oh wait, you mean the actual, you want to see the zone, the delivery zone itself, like as a visual thing on screen. You know, I will play with that, and I will see what I can do. Something better than just the indicator arrow. I think I get what you're saying. I'll chat with you about that offline to see if I understand what you're asking. Because I think I know what you're talking about, and I think I can get that to do. Get that to do what you'd like it to do. Okay, so to the to Monster Finger Games question, how long I've been working on this. The Godot port started in December. So for Godot, basically 4 months. It took 4 months to re-implement almost every single function that we had done in Unreal over the course of 2 years. Re-implementing them in Godot took about 4 months. I gotta say, there was a tremendous amount of fighting with the Unreal Engine that had to be done. And the Godot engine has not required any of that fighting. So, if Godot 4 had come out in 2020, this game would have come out in 2021. I'll just put it that way. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. There wasn't a Godot 4 in 2020, so that's just life. So, yeah, it does kind of stagger me that it took, at the outside, 5 months from when I first began digging into it to getting it to this state. Took 5 months, and 4 months of actually porting. Ah, okay, I see what you're saying there, Mytho. You understand that there's a waypoint, you didn't understand that there's why the delivery was completed when you weren't at a drop-off zone, because it wasn't enough of a visual indicator that, hey, you were entering the zone. I totally get what you're saying now. Yeah, I can do that for you. I think I know exactly what kind of thing we can do to make that obvious. You'd like sort of like a Sobel effect or something that sort of shows any place in this zone, when you park here, you will be good. No problem. I actually use that for positioning them, so yeah, I can definitely do that for you. Let's see, Monster Finger Games says, I've heard Unreal can be a struggle. Yes, sir. If you're making an FPS, a first-person shooter, or a Team Fortress type thing, Gears of War, Unreal is probably the very best choice, because the graphic pipeline is amazing, and it is so desperately good at wanting to be an FPS that if you're making an FPS, it's the right engine. If you are not making a first-person shooter, I would not recommend you use Unreal, because your success with Unreal will depend on how much you can turn whatever idea you have into a first-person shooter. You know, if you're within like 20% of it, it's going to be smooth sailing. If you're 90% off, it's going to be pretty rough. That's why I think you see a lot of flying games that are based on Unreal, a lot of space games that are based on Unreal, are that slot view, where basically you're behind the ship, and the ship kind of moves up and down like a trough in front of you, like swings left and right, and you move kind of left and right like you're holding it on the end of a stick. Because that's a really easy kind of implementation with Unreal. Because you're effectively using a dude that's running around, but the third-person perspective guy is just a plane. To do what we have, which is a non-gimbal locked, full 6 degrees of freedom spaceship, is quite a challenge. Let's see, let me wait a minute and see if there's any other comments. Okay, I'm not seeing any other comments or questions coming in. So thank you folks very, very much for dropping by. I appreciate you all so much. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you checking out the alpha. You know, download it. Put your comments on the forum. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you would like changed. Because, you know, all feedback is valuable, right? Because if it's good feedback, if it's bad feedback, let me know. Because if I don't know, it doesn't exist, basically, right? So here's the thread for feedback on the alpha. Toss your feedback in there. Toss your suggestions in there. Bug reports, anything. Oh, that is very kind of you. Thank you so much, Monster Finger Games. You are a rock star, and I am grateful. Game's not even for sale yet. This dude's over here being awesome. So put your feedback in the forum. Let me know what you do like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see. Even if your idea is out there and you're like, this is nowhere near what you're doing, but I would love it if it could do this. You never know, right? That's one of those game development jokes, which is a person's like, I would like a giant monster spring up out of the ground, fully formed, and attack the player with giant slavering claws. Yeah, I can do that. I would like it to rain. Oh, no, that's not happening. I'd like a hat. No, you're not getting a hat, right? Game dev is one of those wild things where some things are really easy and some things are really hard. And some things, if we know about them in alpha, like right now, we can actually address them. And for, I'll give you 2 great examples. Adalical, who is an awesome friend of our studio and is a great streamer. You should definitely check him out wherever he's streaming right now. Wanted ray tracing. So we looked into it and we were like, can we accommodate ray tracing? With Unreal, we checked it out and it was possible, but it would cut the install base to like 0, like 2 people. So we made it available. It's an option. We came over to Godot. The very first thing I did migrating to Godot was make sure I could enable ray tracing for Adalical. Adalical was like, hey, I would really like to be able to have a bounty hunter. I'm like, you know what? That's a great idea. We should do that. We figured out how to work a bounty hunter into the storyline. We figured out how to work bounty hunting missions in. all that kind of stuff. Our Day Gamer was like, I really want to be able to play this with my gamepad. I'm a gamepad first gamer. Even though the game at the time was based on using your mouse to look directions where you wanted to go and then the ship would move in that direction, and that didn't translate right, we went back to the drawing board and we set everything up so that the entire game can be played with the gamepad. And while the gamepad does lag, since I don't use one myself, so the development is always mouse first and then I get the gamepad caught up to it over time, it's still a top function that we're trying to do. And thank you, I appreciate that, and I love your games. Your games are awesome, Monster Finger games, so you just keep being you. Okay, well, thank you all very, very much for being here. You were awesome. The next update will probably be for the next big patch, which will be most likely next weekend. So, I hope to see you next Saturday, or possibly the week after that, depending on how long it takes me to get that patch ready. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your feedback and your ideas and your suggestions. And thank you so much for your patience. You folks are all absolutely wonderful, and we literally could not do this without you.